college, I took Feminism 101. I took Evolutionary Theory 101. I took Economics 101. I took Philosophy 101. And I was an English lit major, so I studied all the great novels, well, stuff. And never once in any of those courses did someone mention care. And it's the most fundamental thing for the survival of humanity. And there just was like rendered a footnote in the human story for basically ever.
I'm Sarah Wheeler.
And I'm Miranda Rake. And this is The Mother of It All, where we explore motherhood through the lens of culture and culture through the lens of motherhood.
Hi, Miranda. How you doing today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Well, it's only noon. I hiked up a mountain. I took a nap and I planned and ordered an entire IKEA storage room. And in unrelated news, I drank coffee today, which I'm trying not to do because of the ulcer. That's right. Anyone who thinks that they're young at 41 should know you can have ulcers.
I'm sorry about your ulcer.
Yeah, me and my 80-year-old stepdad taking the Prilosec.
Oh.
So, yeah, what's going on with you? How are you adjusting to the minimal childcare lifestyle?
Yeah, well, I'm jealous of everything you've gotten done today. That's way more than me.
I should add that the great teachers of Emerson Elementary are caring for my kids.
So it's been about a month since our time with Darla ended, our full-time nanny
departed.
She still lives with us, so we see her, but she's
is that like
working
daunting? You know, is that like
she has her own space?
A beautiful dress in a window you can't afford?
No,
I mean, I don't want to liken her to inanimate objects. She's a complex person.
She's doing good. I'm happy for her. You know, David and I hope this doesn't feel like belittling to Darla if you ever listen, but
no, everyone knows that we love Darla.
We love Darla.
And she's the unofficial sponsor of the show.
There was. And David and I have these feelings towards her that are sort of like a daughter. Like we think of her as like another child of ours or something, or like a someone that we care for in that way. Like, so I think we just kind of feel that feeling of like, oh, we're excited for her that she's like exploring the next thing, you know, like, so I don't really feel sad about it. I think we were all ready for the transition, but, you know, it's been really interesting. Like, I had a lot of anxiety about how I would feel. And I thought that it would be, maybe I would have like an existential crisis, like working a lot less. And it's actually been amazing.
What?
I know. It's so weird.
So wait, how many hours so you had 40 hours of childcare. Now I'm sorry to hate on what sounds like a lovely preschool, but I have problems with their hours, which are like 9 to 12, 4 days a week or something.
No, it's better than, 8:30 to 12:30, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
So that's basically what I said.
Yeah. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, she can stay until 2 for something called stay and play. That's like a little extra, and you pay a little extra. So we do that. And then, so Wednesdays I'm with her all day. And then there's at afternoons, and then Griffin's done with school at 2:30. So I'm like, every single day starting around 2 is my best case scenario of being like, I'm free until 2. Sort of is my best case scenario.
So it's amazing. So I'm sorry. I'm especially, you know, I'm looking at our guest who's here, who we'll bring on in a minute. Yeah. But I just did the thing where I immediately kind of like disparaged your care time.
Right.
And, you know, and I was like, how could you not? Aren't we just going to bitch about how you have to be around your kid? Yeah. And I do like my kids. So I don't know. Well, we will get into unpacking that voice in my head. But I'm sorry that I dismissed it. Tell me what feels amazing.
Okay, so here's what I'm sort of jazzed about. I think my husband would laugh at me because everything that happens to me, I then reevaluate my entire life and my entire existence. Like, you know, like a small thing causes that always. And
right.
so
Am I a journal person? I like journals now.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is happening is that I'm reevaluating my entire relationship with capitalism and how it has worked on me and my value system and how it has confused me, like in ways I didn't even realize, into like valuing things or believing that I valued things that I maybe don't actually value, or I'm getting really curious about that. Like, what is ambition and what is achievement and what do I really want? Like, and what do I just think I want? And what have I been taught to want versus what feels good? And like, what is meaning and who decides and why? And all
this
of that
sounds very dangerous. Like it could maybe make you question things and want to change and be better.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to stick with my IKEA purchases. No, that sounds really interesting.
Great.
So wait, are you saying that like, is that mostly around work being like, oh, I'm cool not working that much? I don't actually think that is what makes me fulfilled.
I am working.
Yeah.
Right. Like
now,
what
you're
is
doing
work?
it right now.
Like that's another, right? What is work and who decides and what's valuable work and who decides? And I know this is like our whole episode today, but I'm living this right now. Like I get into bed right at night and my kids are challenging and it can be exhausting and all of these things, but it's also like unquestionably fulfilling. Like I don't love anything on earth more than these two little people. And when I go to bed at night and I think about how I spent my day, I feel really satisfied. Like I feel like I'm tired. This is just me too. I this isn't about other people's motherhood or their relationship with it. If you don't like it and you don't really feel like you've spent the day well when you spent the whole day with your kids, like that's fine. If you've got other stuff you want to do and that's what matters,
thank you.
Great. Like I don't want, I think if this is another thing I'm reckoning with is like, I have found a lot of fulfillment in motherhood and I have felt often like it's not okay to say that because it's like sort of implied judgment about other people. And like, I'm reckoning with that. And like, maybe I don't have to write that whole script. Like maybe I could just sort of discover my own feelings about it without automatically self-editing based on imagined things that other people feel about what I say.
And maybe I could take responsibility for working on whatever story inside of me is feeling inadequate, that you enjoy being home more with my kids. Sorry. I mean, you might like mine too.
No.
With your kids. Yeah. But would you take mine? But
no, I do.
But I send mine to school and sometimes I just stick around and take naps. So
that's great.
I mean, let's bring our couples therapist on.
I know, right? Well, okay, we're timing. It's just
great.
Like something that I think I'm going to keep thinking about, but I'm really excited to be working through it here with you.
Great. Me too. No place I'd rather be, whether capitalism wants it or not. I think capitalism hates this podcast because it doesn't really make any money. Okay, we are joined today after a lot of anticipation, I think, from the two of us, by Elissa Strauss. She is a journalist and writer. She writes about politics and the culture of parenting and caregiving in many exciting places. And this year she came out with a fabulous book, When You Care, The Unexpected Magic of Caring for Others. She's also the associate director of LABA, a laboratory for Jewish culture, and many, many other things. And welcome, Elissa.
Hi, guys. Oh my gosh, I already have so much to say. This is so exciting.
Yeah. we got you. I hope you have some sticky notes near you. And so I will say, as you could tell from our intro, Elissa, we've been thinking a lot about care, I think, since we started this podcast. And so when we heard your the topic of your book, and we've been reading your writing about it, everything you've done has kind of piqued our interest. And we've got a long list of topics that we're excited to talk to you about. But first, I'd love to ask you, who's caring for your kids right now?
My kids are 7 and 11, and they just go to like school. I feel like once you kind of enter that elementary school age, the childcare question is less heavy. But also, I think it's really important to call school what it is, which is education and childcare. And my kids have always been after school kids. Funny enough, guess who's calling right now? My kids.
After the
my
school?
kids' school.
Oh no.
Is there a way to patch them in?
Is everything okay?
I'm gonna see if they're gonna call my husband. Let's do another.
No. See if they call your husband.
Here.
Yes.
Let's all just stand by for an experiment. If they call my husband after, yeah.
I love this.
And if they don't, it's not that important. Yeah.
Or if they don't, we need to have a conversation about the patriarchy. With the school.
Yeah. Let's experiment happen live, folks.
I'm on pins and
needles. Let's move on. Let's assume we can move on.
I think one call. My kids are old enough. I'm the kind of mom where it's like one call, I move on. Maybe 2, 3 calls, then I don't just move on. But
right, one call, there's a fake stomach ache. 2 calls, there's blood.
Who knows?
Yeah. Good work-life balance, Elissa. So you came out with this lovely book, When You Care, about like 6 months ago now. And I'm curious if you could tell our audience what the main takeaways that you had from the experience of writing that book and also kind of touring that book about care are.
I think care is hard to talk about for reasons that also underscore how necessary it is to talk about it. I think, everything you guys were touching upon in the beginning, like care is still so tangled up with the patriarchy in ways that makes it thorny. But also if we just don't dive in, it's going to stay tangled up. And I think we're at this really, truly what's an inflection point of trying to do that untangling, of trying to figure out how do we value care, parenting and other forms of caregiving in our lives, while not discounting all that it takes away from us, which is very real in a society that just doesn't support parents, right? I also, I've generally worked closer to full-time-ish, 2/3 time. And I didn't feel bad about not working full-time. I never was someone who ever dreamt of, having suits and doing a power hustle, never in my fantasy vocabulary. So that part was fine. But I financially suffered because I have chosen to spend more time with my kids versus my husband. Both of my grandmas died in essentially poverty because they spent their life as caregivers. So it's how do we separate those two things? We're really just at the beginning of doing that. And I think all this stuff comes up. And I think also all the crap ideology around motherhood, it's hard to take that and put it to the side and then really talk into and really dig into the beauty of motherhood and the kind of deep wisdom we can get through motherhood while shedding the sentimental, sanitized, idealized, flattened mother figure from the conversation. So I think we're still
those are great themes
in it. We're still in it big time. It's hard for people. I have also people just expect my book to be one or the other. So I've had more conservative readers.
What do you mean one or the other? Pro-care
I've had
anti-care?
Pretty much. I've had conservative readers feel like I'm on, let's say, their team. And I am in some way. I think we can all value care and choose to make our life decisions. I approach others with curiosity, not with rejection.
And what's the conservative care team?
So let's just do a cliche, but for a reason. This is a Christian woman who has chosen not to work and enjoy spending time home with her kids and believes that maybe her husband is kind of in charge of the household in a big way, that she's in charge of the home and then the husband's in charge of the money and the kind of public facing power interfacing part of their lives. So a traditional, more patriarchal arrangement. And so I feel like sometimes I've had readers from that side that kind of think, oh, she's on our team. And I am looking at you guys being you know what? I can learn from you. You do find ways to value care. You do talk about the beauty of care. You don't minimize it and reduce it. I have found
not everyone is Harrison Butker, talking about how a woman's place is in the home and it's inappropriate for her to be doing something else. And
But then I think they're disappointed by maybe that, I'm not all the way there. Or I do want universal childcare, that I don't actually think it's antagonistic to think that we should have a really robust, affordable, and reliable childcare infrastructure and value care because I love my kids, not because I want to get rid of my kids. And I think that's it, right? Like for me, more support for caregivers and parents is for love of kids, right? It's not because we all just want to be done with our kids at the end of the day. So I think, and I also say clearly in the book that I think a woman's right to choose whether or not she's pregnant is actually part of a broader care ethic. Like to me, if we're going to really value care, we have to have control over when and how we're doing care. So I think, you know, I lose some people on that side, and then I lose some people that have a feminist vision that is really one in which anything connected to the domestic space or care is something that really takes women away from ambition, power, equality. I feel like so much of the conversation around invisible labor unintentionally demeans care. And it's, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, it's not just a chore to like bake for the bake sale. I will say that as never having once in my life ever baked something for a bake sale. But as an example, like it's not necessarily this awful burden in women's lives.
It depends.
Right. It depends. Like it's not inherently wrong. It's actually beautiful if you like take time to make a homemade good with a child and sell it at the school to raise money for the school. Like what in the world is wrong with that? You know, but because.
Well, if you made it with the kid, it's probably not going to be great. But go ahead. Sorry, I'm a micromanaging baker.
You haven't met Levi, my 7-year-old. He's a beast in the kitchen.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like, and it's hard. I feel like people want to hate each other and we want to talk across each other so much in this culture where actually like there could be more curiosity on each side of like, what does it mean to really value care? Which is my big mission here. Yeah.
So what does it mean to really value care, Elissa?
In a nutshell, I think that there's been a lot of conversation of what that could mean politically, right? I think, and we've all probably heard it, said it so many times that we never want to say it again, but we don't have it, so we have to keep saying it. Paid leave, universal and affordable and reliable childcare, which could be both childcare centers and flexible policies, because I do believe we really need both, and we don't want to assume that every mom or dad only needs a place to send their kid during the day. They may also just want income to stay home.
Yeah.
So we need all that. We also, let's just throw in like more reliable, stronger, well-funded public schools, right? Because as much as, by the time you're in kindergarten, you do basically have a guaranteed, affordable, or free place to send your kids. It doesn't mean that there's not always stress surrounding it. So we need that.
Yeah, I had to have the talk today with my kids. It's a rite of passage about when and how California's schools were defunded by tax reform for the rich. That, it was like, oh, now we're talking about this.
Yeah.
About why your principal has to do fundraising. Anyway, go on. Okay,
so right, we need all that. We know we need
societal aspects of value
societal
and care,
aspects, but then I think
governmental.
Really, what my book is about, because I'm actually not a policy person. I appreciate people who like love nothing more than reading like 400-page white papers. Like it's not.
Yeah, we need them.
We need them. Love them. I quote them in my book. Not who I am. Not the gift the universe has given me is to be one of them. So my book is not a policy book. It's actually a deep dive into how our culture doesn't value caregiving. And I think the quickest way I could say this is like in college, I took feminism 101. I took evolutionary theory 101. I took economics 101. I took philosophy 101. And I was an English lit major, so I studied all the great novels, well, some. And never once in any of those courses did someone mention care. And it's the most fundamental thing for the survival of humanity. And there just was like rendered a footnote in the human story for basically ever. And I think that's like really the starting place of my book is like, wait, what? How did that happen? There's a corner philosophy called care ethics. We might get into it later. It like really didn't emerge until the 1980s. Okay. But like humans are way older than that. So my book is like, why? How did this happen? Why isn't care in the GDP? How was there such a blind spot to parenting and caregiving and most of second wave feminism? Looking, and also discovering all the ways like that care was written into that story by people we just haven't been paying enough attention to.
Wow.
It's so interesting to think about the like putting a dollar value. I liked in your book, you talk a little bit about the economics of care, and um, it's really interesting to put a dollar value on it. And it does sort of, because of the culture being the way it is, it's really helpful to imagine that there is a dollar value attached to it, even if there is not, even if it's not money in my pocket when I do this, when I spend my time this way. And I think that sometimes I even have, a lot of us have adopted the phrase care work. And I think sometimes I have a fraught relationship with that where, the word I think I don't like is work, right? Like what I think about is how I spend my time. And I think of time in our culture as having a monetary value. And like it's a resource, like it's a finite resource for all of us, especially parents. And the question of how I spend it and whether or not that spending of time equals cash in the bank. And like
so you're saying that you don't think care is work that way because you're not getting paid for it. But people use that term because they want to kind of highlight,
I guess, because I have a negative relationship with work. I guess I have a negative relationship with that term, right? Like, but I guess I understand economically it's like labor or whatever. I don't know, but Elissa, you can talk more about sort of that relationship.
I think as long as we're living in capitalism, we need to think of the relationship between money and care. But I'm with you that I still think we have so much work to do around language, and I certainly don't have all the answers. Like I feel like work can feel wrong a little bit because it's both very much as labor. There's tons of labor, and not just the actual caring for our kids part, where it's like sitting on the couch and talking to them about a bad day. That part is like, I guess we can call it labor, and it does lead to better humans in the future, which does help productivity and the economy. But like, it also feels a little bit icky when we think of all the domestic work just to keep a house going like that. I feel like it is
all
important
the
to
IKEA storage systems that have to be purchased.
Storage, like someone did that, and when and how, and it was you, and you have an ulcer. It's like there's something's being exerted here.
Oh no.
So there's an economist named Nancy Fulbury who's been writing about this forever. Again, one of these people where it's like, there's all these brilliant care thinkers everywhere. It's just no one's paying attention, or enough attention. And she said basically in our economy, in our economic system, we do put a monetary value on care, and it's a big fat zero. And I just think it's such a good way to frame the issue in terms of the money piece, because when we don't value it, we don't see actually how care affects our economy. One good example of this is when women really started to leave the home and go to work in offices and paid employment in the 70s. Economists just looked at it one way. They're like, oh, productivity went up. This is great for our economy. But then later someone back and it's like, actually, if we had valued productivity in the home, maybe productivity went down. So it's actually, we're not seeing our economy clearly if we don't put numbers on care.
So is this one of the ways that you mentioned that maybe a major way that care and capital and the patriarchy are tangled up?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that care, they're doing work on this. Like, it's not like no one cares about care at the, government bureaus that work on this stuff, but we don't have care in the GDP. Like, care is actually, if by like modest estimations, by kind of undervaluing care, in my opinion, kind of the bare minimum, by those modest estimations, care is worth as much as the entire retail sector. Like, just all the crap, all the IKEA storage units, and
it's not crap. It'll last at least 2 or 3 years.
No, listen, I have my own cardboard box pile of. I say crap with great love.
Oh no, it's all crap.
Yeah. Like all the stuff. Let's say
does not change how happy we are.
Important life-changing items that we get delivered to us. That again, my cardboard box pile of returns is somewhere just right beyond this table I'm sitting at. It's worth. I mean, care is worth as much of all of that. So and when we don't put these numbers on care, we don't see how much it's worth. We don't know what it would mean financially to invest in it. So we see something as like a really robust childcare policy as something that's just like a draining the economy, just something that we're losing money on, instead of like, oh, if you actually invest in good childcare, then like this many more people can enter the workforce, or or this like it's such an important part of the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, this is
Yeah.
it's kids too, right? Like when we're saying like investing in care, we're also talking about investing in, in that economic perspective. I remember Katie Moose was on the show and talking about feminist, economics through a feminist lens, and um the idea of, as parents, we are raising like future little worker bees for capitalism. And so what could be more important than the next crop of worker
The next
bees?
generation
Well, but it's
of
also like
proles.
it's that, but it's also we're raising people who hopefully will be good members of society and won't be a drain to society, And I don't drain,
Contribute.
I mean on a spreadsheet level, I don't mean that. Like, but
Yeah.
are these like lovely people that show up in their communities and help others? Or are these people that need a tremendous amount of healthcare because they have physical or mental issues that are stemming from their childhood? Are they in prison? I mean, abolish prisons, but like until that happens, like, I mean, the data couldn't be more clear that it's like there is a bit of a pay now or pay later issue with investing in kids, and you pay a lot less if you pay now than if you pay later. So absolutely.
Are there calculations on that? Like dollar amounts?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know those off the top of your head?
No, I'm not. If I was that good white paper person, I would. But no, it's in my book. I can.
We'll link to one of those guys.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. It could be a lady or they. Okay. So this is kind of valuing care on a societal level. But I want to pull us back to what we started the episode with, which was our request for couples therapy from you, which any listener will know is kind of half of why we do this show. That what about on the individual level? What about like a mother, let's say in Portland, Oregon, with who is trying to kind of wrestle with like do I value the care that I'm doing or not, and this kind of internal maternal effect that you discussed and that you've written about very beautifully in Slate and in other places about like this tension in the mother culture around whether we enjoy caring for our children or not, and what that means if we do.
So I'm gonna break it down into two questions. So for the
yes,
first,
it was. Thank you.
No,
it was many questions.
It was a very good one.
You're a great guest.
Otherwise I'll just like word salad. I'll like Sizzler bar, like post earthquake word salad of an answer. So I'm doing it for me. So I think the first piece of like the kind of internal experience that maybe this mother in Portland, Oregon is or is not having, is like, are we in a culture that treats care as a profound meaning-making experience or not? I think we're not. And so when we think about a lot of the ways that we see meaning making happening, we see epiphany seeking happening, wisdom seeking happening, we don't really have a lot of models of that happening within the context of care relationships. Care has been either forever was the fairy tale, and then it became the nightmare version, basically. And the whole like messy, lush, challenging, fiery middle has been kind of left out of the story. When last winter, George Clooney had a movie come out called The Boys in the Boat, and it had just like that classic Hollywood trailer music of like a hero's journey of like a struggle, but they overcame it. And in my head at the time, like, all I want is for someone to make a story about a mom or any other caregiver that like has with this music. Like, I want this Hollywood treatment. I want us to like have free solo, but a mom, and have it be this like challenging experience, but something we're deeply curious about, because we see it as someone going through something that is like truly a hero's journey. That's like bringing them to another layer of what it means to be human and challenging them and it's hard, and sometimes they hate it, and we're with them, and we're like, fuck, the baby's crying at 3 a.m. You can't do that. They have the meeting tomorrow. It's like the drama and the tension's there, but it's mounting towards something big. It's not mounting towards something petty. And I feel like that's where so many moms are at, that it feels like either they're picking between the fairy tale and the nightmare, and they don't get to be in that like big, messy middle, like hero's journey space. And I think that, again, you look at so much of kind of our current culture of like philosophical seeking or spiritual epiphanies. What's in fashion
the
now.
Enneagram.
Yeah, it's like we just don't see, like, relationships, first of all, aren't a big part of those, like real thick relationships, like relationships you can't just like leave, whenever they become inconvenient kind of relationships, and certainly not care, so it's like someone goes to a silent meditation retreat and they come back and they have like a halo of wisdom around them. We treat them like they're this elevated guest at the dinner party because they did something rich and deep. And I don't remember anyone ever treating a parent or caregiver like that.
Yeah. I wonder, two things. One of the things you're talking about, like big Hollywood, messy middle. I mean, I think that's why some of us are so excited for the like mainstream treatment that Night Bitch is getting. Because it does feel like it's that, like that storytelling. But anyway.
Yeah, there was another film, I think it won like the audience award or something at Sundance a few years ago, 1001, that it had very swelling music, but it wasn't, I don't think it's quite what you're imagining. How do you be the swelling, hero's journey music that you want to see in the world on an individual level?
I think for me, it was just like an internal shift, and it's something that happened to me more than I decided to do. I mean, it's really where the book came from. The book was kind of born of a double-barreled epiphany. On one hand, I'd been writing like every article I could about paid leave and paid leave and childcare, and feeling at some point like, all right, I can't write another piece about this. I remember I was reading the New York Times, and there was a quote from a source about maternal mortality rates. That was the exact same source giving the exact same quote as I had published like 4 years before when writing for Slate. And I was like, all right, you know what? Like, there's something deeper going on here that I am really curious about. I don't know what it is, but like, this is not just policy. Like, somehow we fundamentally don't value care. What's up? And then the other epiphany was kind of realizing that in my own life, as much as I wasn't hesitant about becoming a mom, I didn't have a hard time connecting with my first Augie, who's now 11. But I did have the sense that like motherhood makes you unserious, uncool, uninteresting in literary Brooklyn circles where I was at the time. Everyone read Rachel Cusk's The Life Work. And while I appreciate that book for what it is, it also kind of gave me this sense that like being smart and interesting and being a mom were a zero-sum game. So what happened to me is that I had a kid and he was like, and then when he starts talking, he's like this whole other human, which I know is obvious, but when I like really sat with that and I really realized how much like receptivity being a parent demanded of me, and then instead of like pushing that away, leaning into it and kind of being like intellectually and philosophically and emotionally and spiritually challenged by that, it just lit up the whole experience for me. So in a way, paradoxically, like motherhood became bigger for me to actually like it more, but not bigger in the like classic good mother sense. I am not any of those things that we think of, like the always on attentive parent. Thank God gentle parenting happened after my kids were like older, because I am constitutionally incapable growing up in like a very traditionally kind of loud, argumentative, and very loving Jewish American household. Like I don't stand a chance with just being like, honey, it would mean a lot. I don't even know how you gentle parent. I could never do it. So like,
yeah,
I don't,
that was bad.
Yes. You could see.
You're fine.
Like, Levi, put your shoes on. We have to go. That's it. That's the best I got. That's my gentle. So it wasn't about making parenting bigger and like following the external scripts of parenthood. It was about making parenting bigger as something that was actually like an interesting thing that was happening to me. So deep curiosity really is what it comes down to.
I'll push you just for 1 minute to like drill a little bit more of like, and I know, when you write a book like this, it's like everyone wants solutions, and that can be really annoying because it can kind of turn back into something not nuanced. But I'm thinking about me and Miranda, as we go through the rest of our days today, and she's kind of exploring, maybe I like care. Maybe it is this big magical thing that you're describing. And I'm kind of experiencing, again, that dynamic that mothers feel amongst each other of comparison, of like, oh, but maybe I'm having a hard time with this, and so I can't reconcile it. What do you think both of us should be thinking about in order to? You were saying like you didn't like it and then value it more. You had to value it first to like it more.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I just want to be clear. It's not like every moment I'm sitting here. And, it's almost like if you think of it, like if anyone has kind of a spiritual prayer practice, like you're not in that state all the time, but you have enough of those kind of like, this is a self-healthy word, but like intentional moments to protect the possibility and the space for those more intentional moments, those moments of connection, those moments of trying to really listen, trying to see this other, trying to see yourself through this other, and see what that opens up for you. And, again, I am like by no means this like always available mom. I could not actually have those moments if I followed the scripts of like good motherhood, as imposed to us by Instagram and elsewhere.
So maybe it's like, what if I'm a hero? Or maybe I'm just hearing, like I'm going to be making my kids dinner tonight, and I can hear like, da, 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 like that. I can do that. That's like, I
think every mom should actually do that every night.
For sure.
Okay, I need a different song. But come back. It's probably Beyonce.
Sometimes Levi and I put on, we're baking the British Bake Off soundtrack, which is its own.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my culture wreck today. It's really fun to bake with the British Bake Off soundtrack. It's a great track.
Okay, so if we're taking a little diversion, I'm reading a book right now that is like a murder mystery based on Bake Off.
Oh.
What?
Yeah.
We just started watching British Bake Off Junior.
Oh, well.
And it's so fun. I never thought about that there's a soundtrack to it.
Well, wait, but you've watched
Can I get it on vinyl?
You've watched the grown-up one?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever. Yeah, you just like
we were actually
Spotify.
My husband and I were Prue and Paul for Halloween last year.
Amazing. Prue
I'll leave you to guess who was who.
Can you believe she's like 83 or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. So the swelling music and
but you're also not going to get it. I think it's really not to feel like you have to make it happen for yourself. It's like, I don't know, maybe this is hard where it's like, right, we're all just living our lives and with our experiences and our psychologies in our bodies. But I think it doesn't hurt for everyone to elevate on some level. Like when you're making a meal for the kid, you're not just like making a meal, but you're like helping raise a future human. Like this is the future of humanity. It happens brick by brick, care by care. Like that's
right.
How humanity happens.
And here's the like extreme dichotomy that we swing against. Saying that doesn't mean I'm a trad wife and that's what I want to be. Right? That you can do that without the danger of kind of minimizing the work and simplifying like what it means to you as a person.
Absolutely.
I also wonder, something I wanted to touch on here. I would use the word for me. And this came up in a therapy session when I was talking about how much I'm enjoying this new work life. I don't know, slice of pie. And
with an actual therapist?
With my actual therapist. Okay, cool. She said, I said, I just really like being with my kids and it really is meaningful to me. And it's hard sometimes and it's this sometimes, but I never am sad that I spent the day with them. And like, even when I'm crying at the end of the day because it was so hard, it's like, it's meaning that I'm seeking in my life and it supplies that for me. And she said, she just very kindly was like, I want to validate that for you. And she was like, you know, this is sacred work. And she was like, I meet people all day, every day whose parents did not like invest in them. And I will tell you, like, you are doing valuable work. This work is very valuable. And of course, then I started crying. But it, you know, I think I liked her term sacred. I, as a person who, my undergrad degree is in religious studies, and I don't belong to a particular faith, but I do have a deep affection for meaning making and sacred practices and rituals. And I think that for me to think of parenting as a sacred thing in my life, like what is sacred to you, maybe divorced from religion, is a powerful thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean you spend X amount of time doing it. Like it could be just tucking your kids in, and maybe that's your little moment of that kind of meaning in your day.
I'm just laughing. I'm sorry, Miranda. You're talking about this beautiful moment. But the laughter, I have to explain my laughter. It was the idea of a mother of our particular, you know, cultural moment sitting in therapy, confessing that they enjoy their children. And, you know, this gets back again to Elissa's article, you know, which was titled, "It's a Weird Time to Be a Happy Mother," I think. And Elissa, I want to point out too, I think in hearing you talk, I think one of these ingredients may be to finding the happiness in the care and valuing it, and also being able to kind of like admit it and not get stuck in this, you know, decades long reactionary, you know, swing that we're doing, which is that, you know, all women could do was care. And then we had to rebel against that to show that we were more than that. You know, and is this piece of like doing it authentically? You were speaking about how you're never going to be a gentle parent. I'm sure you're gentle in, you know, your shampooing and things like that. But that I think that is a barrier for me in the valuing of care too, that there's also these voices in my head, the gentle parent voices saying, you're not caring right. And so you're not doing it right. And so that's, again, it's a distraction. And it's also becomes a like, well, fuck this. You know, I think I have to be a like cool parent who's like, whatever, I don't, you know, I don't do scripts because I'm reacting again to this thing that makes me just feel bad.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And it's hard. You know, I think that it would do us all a lot of good if we remembered that parenting is a relationship between like one totally unique human with another. And it helps just as a way to tune out just the kind of avalanche of advice that's out there for parents at all moments.
My kids are pretty basic, but go on. No, they're unique. Yeah. They're special.
I don't believe it.
Basic bitches.
Yeah. No, I think that the way parenting advice has evolved in the last 20 some years has made parenting seem like a formula in some level. And we forget that it's really a relationship. And we would never, ever stand for this level and really patronizing advice in our marriages, right? If we're married, like we would never be like, you know, if your husband comes home, like, here's the one and only best way to get your husband to clear his plate from the table. Like we were like, no, like marriage advice is totally useful. Parenting advice is totally useful. But this idea that if something doesn't work for you, or it just doesn't feel intuitively right for you, that there's something wrong with you, which I think a lot of parents feel. They hear how other families work and it makes them think something's wrong with them. Like that's the part that I think is the obstacle that's getting in the way for people to find more meaning and joy and to like tap into that sacred quality, whatever the word sacred might mean for them in parenting. It's just too many voices in our heads.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You're not the first parent of a bit of a slightly older generation that I've heard say like, thank God the Instagram advice and the gentle parenting stuff wasn't as loud as it was when I was a new parent, or I wouldn't have like found my instincts. So that's frightening.
Well, I think
that's the first time I've been called the older generation.
You're like, thanks a lot.
I'm gonna flag it, or I'll say
wise. You are a wise crone, and we're taking back that term. So
I think we should.
I'm gonna need an older generation.
I have an ulcer, Elissa, so it's not great being down here.
So I want to jump in with another point that I think we're kind of talking around, which is in order to have these sacred feelings or these sort of like deeply fulfilling, meaningful moments, we have to be in a place of like receptivity. Like we can't be, if we're crushed by a sense of unbeatable like burdens of like work and just economic burdens, and we have no help and we're all by ourselves. And I think about the parent that I am when I'm in a super stressful time, whether it's financial or whatever. And that parent is way less checked in to like any kind of meaning or joy or sacred feelings. And so but these are structural problems. These are not individual. This is not our individual fault. And so when we look at, like you're saying, building a care-centered, structural system, government, whatever you want to say, these policies come in to make parents more able to enjoy parenthood. I think feeling that we're blaming ourselves for not enjoying parenthood, or looking at other families and blaming them, or even blaming influencers, when the blame is on maybe largely like the structures of our society and once again late stage capitalism. But
this is our friend Ruth Whitman's Substack, I Blame Society.
Right. It's hard because but I do think there's the internal personal too of when we begin to value the care we give, we then maybe demand that others do as well. Like it can come from that recognizing, and that I think is what I was getting at, that I'm experiencing right now, is like I'm doing something really valuable, and I'm starting to analyze why I have struggled to value it previously and what it means to start to value it, and then how it changes my relationship with other people in my life and the systems around me. But I'm also curious about, in terms of valuing care in an individualistic society, something that I think new mothers, particularly, I certainly struggled with, is accepting care. Like,
I'm thinking, cared for.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about the concept of alloparenting, where, Lucy Jones has referenced this a lot, this study that in alloparenting communities, so communities where children have many caregivers by kind of the nature of the societal structure, the birth parent of a child would respond to that child only about 20% of the time. And 80% of the time, other adults or other caregivers would respond. And so in contrast to our society, which is now dominated by nuclear family models, we really are burdened with care in a way that we are not designed to be. This isn't maybe the healthiest way to experience motherhood or parenthood. And maybe that is what is in the way of, our enjoyment of caregiving. And
is that we also need to be
seeking out other care, right? We need to be accepting
for our
care.
children and also for ourselves. Is that kind of what?
And I wonder about your thoughts on that. The idea of accepting as well as giving.
Yeah. So I think, like kind of what you're saying at the beginning, to speak to that, I think there is no care without a self. Like the caregiver has to have a self. And if the caregiver is in a position where their self is being totally depleted by care, they're not going to care well for the person they're caring for. And they're definitely not going to get anything close to meaning or maybe pleasure from care. And 100%, like our society right now has everything stacked against caregivers' well-being, just full stop. So I think that is a big factor. And I think as part of that, I think, so we have a care crisis. We have something we call the care crisis, and we have a kind of care justice movement, right? Something though that does bother me is when the people in the care justice movement just focus on the burden part of care, because I actually don't think that should be the only argument for getting justice for caregivers, getting justice for parents should be that care is such a burden. To me, it actually kind of just drives home a patriarchal like notion of care, something that's just like something you have to get through and be done. And it's kind of nice for women as long as they don't talk about it and just like brush it aside. So is there a way to fight for care justice while saying like, no, care is not just something that takes away, but something that we get from and grow from if we have the right conditions? So I think it's a tension, and it's a tricky one because it's really hard. Everything I just said does not make for a pithy activist statement. I clearly am not like built for activism, because activism is about identifying.
That's where the music comes in.
Exactly.
You can just say, if the music is behind you, it'll sell.
If some flag waving. Right. You fight for change by identifying a crisis. You don't fight for change by saying like, there's a crisis, but it's connected to this really beautiful part of being human. And can't you just see the full picture and just read a 300-page book? So I think
but maybe you do now.
Maybe you do now. Yeah.
Go on.
So I think it's important. I think like Rosalind Carter, Jimmy Carter's wife, was really great about trying to always connect the dots between like care is one of the most important things we do, like fundamental to humanity, and is just way too hard right now for caregivers. So there's ways to do it, but I think it gets left out of the story, and particularly like the Instagram moment of the story. And when you hear like invisible labor come up, it's often paired with the degradation of care. So it's just like more people degrading care, and this time it's women, and can we do better? And then I think in terms of like the collective care piece, absolutely. So Sarah Blaffer Hardy's an anthropologist who really put this on the map, this notion. There was someone else came up with the term alloparenting, but she herself was a new mom in Texas in I guess the 80s, I think it was, and was like, oh, why aren't I like loving this? Why aren't I like perfectly attuned to my kid at all times? I'm failing as a mom. And then she's like, oh, but actually I'm this like kick-ass anthropologist and evolutionary thinker, and I'm going to like dig in and see if what I'm thinking I'm failing at is even true. And it turns out it wasn't. Like we humans, we didn't just evolve to be in collective care arrangements, but we actually became who we are, according to Sarah's arguments, because of them. Like our whole ability to have theory of mind, to try to imagine what another person's thinking and to cooperate actually comes from in her theory, alloparenting. So it's like, it's almost like a chicken and egg piece of humanity. We wouldn't have survived without alloparenting because small humans are just too demanding for one person. And we would not be who we are. We would maybe not have evolved to be people who could be sitting on this Zoom and connecting and trying to like reach into each other's brains in the way that we are. And if we hadn't had that. So it's absolutely like, it was for most of our life on this planet, it's how we cared. And this idea now that, and this was me with my first kid, my husband didn't get paternity leave. I was home alone all day, and it just like fucking sucked. There's no other way. It was
same
miserable. Augie was born a couple days after Hurricane Sandy in New York City. So it was like just a dark, weird vibes everywhere. I couldn't breastfeed. I did not have generous lactation consultants. I had ones that are like, you have to pump all day and do the tube and do this. And so I felt like I was like running a meth lab, and I would be like, Augie, I can't hold you right now. I have to pump for 3 hours. And at some point I was like, what the heck? This is messed up.
Can we just say like power pumping or whatever? Can no one ever do that ever? I don't know anyone who's had a good experience. I'm not an expert.
I don't remember the language. I've repressed the dark memory of the pressure to breastfeed and failing at it and neglecting my child. I mean, that's neglected my child for like a month when he was a newborn because I was like, have to pump, have to do the tube, have to clean all the stupid shit. And then my husband had paternity leave for the second kid, and it was like night and day, just night and day. So that's already for me this taste, because you know what? Like I realized with the second kid, newborns are demanding, but they're not hard. They're not like difficult. They're demanding.
Yeah, they're simple. It's simple
like,
beings.
So if you could just pass it off, you could like sleep a little. Like with Augie, I felt like a seal when that's all I imagined myself. I would like go to when I was with my child that I didn't have maternity leave, or my husband did not have paternity leave with. I would like throw food in my mouth like I was like a seal in an aquarium. That's what it felt like a turkey slice and a carrot. Like that was my days for a month, just being inside. And with Levi, when Nathaniel had paternity leave, I like made real warm lunches for myself and took naps. And we had just moved into this house where we live now in Oakland. And it was a pleasure because we would take turns like organizing our plates and the bookshelves while the other one was just like sitting on the couch watching Netflix, with the baby in their lap. So I feel like my micro experience of the fundamental difference of sharing care versus not sharing care is like it absolutely transfers to the macro level. Like it's just so broken. And I think it's actually a good thing to say very out loud that 100% part of the reason I'm able to access more joy and meaning through care is because my husband's a very active co-parent. And he's not doing it out of a sense of duty. I mean, some stuff we all do out of a sense of duty, like dishes and laundry. But he actually like genuinely has a gut level joy and love and meaning from being with the kids as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I think that gives me the space I need to restore the self, which then gives me the space I need to enter back into care in this receptive place.
I think that does matter a lot. Do you have a partner and what kind of partner you have? And I also, just for myself, I think that this kind of narrative in my head that I was handed by society as a mother of like, you can do it all, results in this kind of game of chicken kind of, that's like, how little care can I get? Yeah. How little help can I get? And so I would kind of play that stingy game with childcare, with like, no, I'll only send them for 4 hours. I can do it. Or like, no, I can pack the diaper bag and I don't need my husband to do that. Or like, I don't need my mother to come out. And I think that can also get in the way, even when we do have resources around us for support of actually accessing them. Because we're told that a good mother should do it all and enjoy it. And so I love this idea of kind of thinking about that everybody's programmed for care, and you have this kind of gift to give to other people to allow them to care for you and to care for your children.
And I wonder about trust, right? Like, so we have a neighbor who's about to have a baby, and there's a bunch of moms on the block, and we're all kind of circling, I feel like. And
we'll hold her while you take a shower.
Right. And
hi, I'm Sarah.
I mean, genuinely, right? And the couple,
I just moved into a new neighborhood, and the baby across the street, I'm like, what? How many times do I have to talk to them before I'm like, you guys should go out on Wednesday?
Exactly. And that is genuine, right? Like you are coming from a place that is 100% genuine. But I also remember that feeling of being the new parent when someone says like, I'll walk your baby, or why don't you go out to dinner? And I would just, I don't know why, but I just would kill to take care of this woman's baby, or like drop off some groceries. And I took her, I sort of badgered her into going to coffee with me. And I we walked around the neighborhood and we chit-chatted about all these things. And I fully was like, just kind of just listed off all the things I'll help with. And I was like, and no pressure, but just like put this in your head. Like, I'll drop a meal. I'll organize the meal train. I'll hold your baby. I'll tell you what to do for baby sleep. I'll like, and then like, I don't care if you don't use any of that. It's totally fine. But like, text me, call me. I will literally show up on your doorstep. But you kind of see this look on her face that I remember feeling too, where it's like, somehow it feels there's something frightening or something you don't quite trust about the idea of accepting help. And I don't know if it's like part of my new mom fear of accepting help, or more scary, or even like asking for help that has not been offered that I desperately need.
Yeah, I would have loved someone to say that to me. I mean, despite all the things I just said about not taking care, I think like if a more experienced woman, oh man.
But I wonder if it's because our society is structured the way it's structured, and we are used to
like stranger danger.
Well, or things not working out, not no one, like we all just lived through COVID, right? So or not, well, anyone who's listening lived through COVID, but sorry, that was really dark. But the sense that like stuff is kind of broken and a lot of things don't work. And so you do, like, not only do we have an individualistic culture, but we also have experienced a sense that, like, there's no real help out there. So we better just not even expect it, and, like, don't even trust it. Like, just, you just have to, like, do it yourself. You know it's going to end up that way anyway.
Do it yourself thing.
So again, like, why would I get used to help? Because, like, it won't stay or it won't be,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but I wonder if that would be a way to, like, start to value care too, would be to, like, seek it out and accept it and offer it.
And to offer and be the example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I don't know.
Well, I think one small thing is to not just offer care. I actually find asking for care to be more effective and opening up, like, concentric circles of caregiving and building this care communities. Because sometimes people need you to be the first person that's like, I'm vulnerable, I need help. Like, can you give it to me? And then they feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And I think to get back into our, like, rail against capitalism stuff, when you invest most of your life into work, you're probably not, you may be, and bless everyone for whom this has been true, you're lucky and that's beautiful, but you're probably not building the kind of relationships that are going to, like, then transfer to the person that you're going to feel you can trust watching your baby, that's going to be willing to watch your baby. So I think part of it is we're not in communities before we have kids of trust. And we're not in a place where we have a general trusting vibe. This will be my last thought. And I think it's a good wrap up one. So when I was living in New York, a lot of my friends were Israeli, and which I know is a complicated thing. Anyway,
you're allowed to. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone hates the war with everything in them. Like, it's
yes.
Okay. There we go. And Israelis have a really, like, deep collective sense. I went to my friend Ronit's house, and there was a woman there that was so involved with her kids. And I wasn't good friends with Ronit yet, so I didn't know who her sister was. I was like, this is Ronit's sister. This is obviously Ronit's sister. She's, like, yelling at them, loving them, playing with them. I was like, okay, it's so cool. I'm going to, like, meet Ronit's sister. And then I'm like, Ronit, who is that? She's like, oh, I don't know. She's like, but my friend, Yossi brought her over. I'm not sure. I think she's visiting from Israel, but I don't know who she is. And I was like, holy shit, because it was just so, I would like, among Americans, before I was a mom, I would never see that though around other American moms. There would never be this sense of, like, assumed intimacy to make that kind of, like, sharing of care happen, because there's fear. Like, will I be doing something wrong? Will I be parenting them in the wrong way? If they get hurt, will I be blamed for it? Did I give them the wrong food that they're not, there's so much fear. And I had a lot of Israeli friends in New York, and it really, really changed my whole experience of early parenting. And my friends in Israel, you bring kids in the public all the time. So I was like, okay, it's like, bring the kids to the museum, bring the kid here. Like, kids are passed around. It's not even thought of as, like, it's not even something that they're aware that they're doing. It's just inherent and kind of ingrained in the culture. So I think it's so deep in our culture to have to fight to get there. And yeah, I mean, and getting there, it's not like it's not something any of us can just, like, flip a switch or wave a magic wand and suddenly be in these, like, beautiful allo-parent collective cultures of care.
Yeah. I love the point you make about asking for care, though. I feel that it's in my shift in time, like, spending more time caregiving, I've ended up taking on other kids as well. Like, I'm just there. I'm there at pickup and I'm there at drop off, and it's part of my life. And so I often offer to grab other kids, like, oh, you want me to grab your kid so you can work a little extra? And then that is coming back to me too.
Yeah, it's funny. I can see the magic of that with other people's kids, the sacredness. Like, when I offer, it's early release days and I have a flexible schedule. Who can I take?
Yeah.
But I don't apply it to my own children, that sacredness. It's like, that feels like a burden. So I'm interested in exploring that and try to kind of melt those things. That's a great point, Miranda. Well, it's been fabulous to talk with you, Elissa. It's such an interesting topic that we just keep circling back to, and has so many little little tentacles, and I hope we've untangled a few of them today. And before we let you go, do you have any culture recommendations for us and our listeners?
All right. Small one is Sarah dancing the hora with her mom on Instagram. Gave me joy.
That is a great video. I have never gotten so many likes than the video I posted of me and my mom doing the hora at my niece's bat mitzvah this weekend. It was pretty. I mean, I think it's just people like my mom. She's great content.
She is great.
Yeah, listen, use her for maybe you'll make more money with the podcast. You got to get your mom in the.
We'll bring her on again.
Yeah,
we'll do moms again.
No, okay, but my big rec is last night. I just finished the show Young Sheldon, which I've been watching over the course of the last year with my 11-year-olds.
Oh,
and I love the show because it feels like 80s television, not like contemporary family-friendly media where everyone's kind of smoothed out and sanitized, and there's lots of good morals. I mean, the show has its sentimental elements. There's like the core expression is like, this is a family that loves each other, but everyone is deeply flawed. The content gets more and more mature as it progresses. So by later seasons, there's, potential marital infidelity plots.
Ooh.
There's a big death at the end of the show, which we just weathered last night together, my son and I. And first of all, it's like it has that kind of, it's, nothing is the wonder years, but it has that kind of container for the existential pain that is being alive quality to it of 80s, 90s television. And it's also like a show that you can have that together time of when there used to be like one TV in the house and you all share
together TV
watching experience.
It's so cozy.
Which we've done with movies a lot in my house, but I've never like really had a show with my kids.
Oh, it's so nothing feels better than when I have a show. It's usually with my daughter. Oh, it's so delightful.
Yeah. So thumbs up to Young Sheldon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was trying to think of culture recs. The only thing I have is the song Lean on Me. It's really in the culture right now in my family. My daughter is learning it for her like after school performance. And she's very good with lyrics, so she knows them all already. But I got to teach her the part. I was like, have you gotten to the part where you go, you just call on me, brother? And she was like, no. So I taught her that. And then we sang it at my niece's bat mitzvah, like at the family brunch, because we're embarrassing. And now it's just been stuck in my head. And I've been going around the house like, we all need somebody. And it just feels really good. And now that I'm saying it, maybe that's my care anthem.
Oh,
maybe that's like when I'm making dinner tonight, maybe that's what I'm hearing is like, you just call on me, brother. And it feels,
more than hearing, you just sing it.
Yeah. Don't worry. I don't need encouragement.
Levi is also performing that song, my 7-year-old, on Friday.
See, it's in the culture.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Please send clips.
Whoa.
Elissa, it was such a joy to have you here. Please, everybody should buy your book, When We Care, follow your Substack, Made with Care, and just continue on their care journeys with authenticity and theme music. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And like my mom always said, I'd enjoy this more if somebody helped me.
The Mother of It All is produced by Opus Knox Media with music from It's Electric. If you liked this episode, why not send it to a friend right now? Go on, we'll wait. You can follow us on Substack at themotherofitall.substack.com, where subscribing will get you episodes and bonus posts in your inbox and connect you with the Mother of It All listener community. Plus, become a paid subscriber and get a hot off the presses Mother of It All canvas tote. We're also on Instagram at The Mother of It All, and you can email us anytime with ideas or feedback at motherculturepod@gmail.com.